Morning broke with a heaviness I could feel before I even opened my eyes. Dawn light seeped through the canvas walls, turning everything inside the tent a dull yellow gray. The air tasted thick, like the jungle had crept in while we slept and was now settling into our lungs. It wasn't just another day. It felt like a warning. Harper was already awake, sitting on an overturned ammo crate, boots laced, rifle resting across his lap. He looked like he hadn't slept even a minute. His shoulders were slumped in a way that made him seem older than Rivers, older than Hargrove, older than anyone in camp. Cruz was kneeling again, eyes closed, rosary wrapped so tightly around his fingers I thought the beads might snap. His lips moved silently, praying with the desperation of someone who'd run out of all other options. Ellis rummaged through his medic pouch, checking and rechecking supplies he had practically memorized. He didn't look at any of us. He didn't have to. His silence said enough. Danny was awake, but not moving. He sat on the edge of his cot, staring at the floor, gripping the Polaroid of his family like it was the only thing anchoring him to this world. His face was drawn tight, as if some invisible hand was squeezing the breath from him. And Price sat in the darkest corner, sharpening his knife in slow, rhythmic strokes. The sound of metal scraping against stone was soft, steady, unsettling. His letters were tucked into his chest pocket, a fragile piece of home pressed against a chest that didn't feel like home anymore. I sat up slowly, every muscle aching, every thought heavier than it should have been. Harper finally looked at us. "Hargrove wants us at briefing in 15. "Another sweep?" Ellis asked without looking up. "No," Harper said, rubbing his eyes. "River Patrol, South Bend." Danny's head snapped up. "The river?" Cruz made the sign of the cross automatically. "That place is cursed." Ellis frowned. "You believe in curses now?" Cruz shook his head. "I believe in the jungle and the river. It remembers things." Price stopped sharpening his knife. Slowly, deliberately, he sheathed it with a click that seemed louder than it should have been. "Let's move," Harper said quietly, "before Hargrove thinks we're stalling." We stepped out into the morning heat, which wrapped around us like a wet blanket. The camp was waking. Soldiers grabbing mess kits, someone cursing at the generator, a radio operator lighting his first cigarette of the day. But there was an uneasiness in the air, like even the veterans felt something wrong, humming under the routine. We made it to the briefing table where Captain Hargrove stood over a map pinned to a makeshift board. Mallory was beside him, arms crossed, sweat already darkening his fatigues. Hargrove didn't waste time. "Last night's contact wasn't isolated," he said. "Recon found fresh boot prints along the riverbank, heavy ones. Could be moving supplies, could be a tunnel entrance, or an ambush," Harper said quietly. "Or that," Hargrove agreed. Mallory pointed to a bend in the thin blue line on the map. "You'll patrol this stretch. South Bend to Old French Bridge. Stay low, stay quiet, and for God's sake, don't fall in." "River's not that deep," Ellis said. Mallory raised an eyebrow. "Depth isn't the issue. What's in it is." Danny swallowed hard. "What's in it?" Mallory didn't answer. Hargrove folded his arms. "You're not engaging unless you absolutely have to. This is reconnaissance, not a firefight." That had also been the plan last time. None of us said it out loud. "You move out in 20, Hargrove finished. We dispersed without a word. The jungle to the south was different from the valley. Not quieter. Nothing in Vietnam was quiet, but it had a kind of wet, choking stillness that made each breath feel like swallowing steam. The trees grew thicker. The vines hung lower. The ground softened into muck that tried to keep hold of your boots with every step. and beneath it all was the sound of the river, a slow, slithering whisper that never stopped. Cruz whispered prayers again. Danny's breath grew shallow. Ellis kept touching the side of his neck, like checking his pulse. Price walked near Harper, scanning the trees with that wide, unblinking stare of his. We followed Harper down a narrow, muddy trail until the jungle parted abruptly. And there it was, the river, brown, slow-moving, reflecting the canopy above it in warped, trembling ripples. It looked calm and somehow sinister, like it knew things we didn't. We crouched behind a fallen log. Harper motioned to spread out along the bank. Danny swallowed hard. "The river smells like death," Price finished flatly. "Smell's been the same every time we've passed it." Danny shut his mouth. Harper scanned the opposite bank through binoculars. "Movement?" Cruz whispered. "Nothing yet," Harper murmured. "Keep low." We waited. Seconds stretched. Minutes dragged. The river whispered its slow, endless song. Then Ellis pointed. "There! A trail, faint boot prints along the muddy bank. Fresh." Harper followed the tracks with his eyes. "2 men, maybe 3. Heading east," Price murmured. "How's the water?" Cruz whispered. Price crouched near the edge. He dipped a finger in and sniffed. "Oil," he said. "Gasoline. Maybe a boat passed through." Harper's jaw tightened. "If they're running supplies on the river, we need to know where," Ellis finished. We moved east, hugging the bank, staying low behind brush and fallen branches. The mud sucked at our boots. Mosquitoes swarmed around us, biting any skin they could reach. Sweat dripped down my spine like someone tracing a cold finger along my bones. Danny flinched at every noise. Cruz whispered again. Price's hand hovered near his knife. Ellis looked pale, but determined. Harper looked alert, too alert. We reached a narrow stretch where the shrubs parted. That's when we saw it. A small wooden boat, VC style, tucked under tree cover across the river. Empty, half hidden by vines. Fresh footprints in the mud beside it. Harper exhaled. They're nearby. We froze, waiting for voices, movement, anything. Then, faintly, a rustle. Harper motioned down. We dropped low, bodies pressed to the mud. A moment later, 2 Viet Cong soldiers appeared from the brush across the river. They were carrying crates, slowly, carefully, toward the boat. Their rifles were slung across their backs. Harper whispered, "Don't move." We didn't. We listened. They spoke quietly, too quiet to translate, but their tone wasn't alarmed. They didn't know we were there, but they were doing something important. They were loading something heavy, something marked in faded, smeared lettering. "What's that say?" Ellis whispered. I squinted. Cruz leaned in. "Explosivos," Cruz read. "Spanish, but used all over." Ellis inhaled sharply. "Jesus." Harper's voice dropped into a whisper that felt colder than the river. "They're running explosives up the river." Price stiffened. "For an attack? Or several?" Harper murmured. The VC soldiers lifted another crate. Danny's breath hitched loudly. Too loudly. One of the soldiers froze. His head snapped toward our side of the river. His eyes narrowed. I felt my pulse spike. My breath stopped. My fingers tightened around my rifle. He leaned forward, squinting into the brush. We didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't exist. Then, a bird screamed overhead, startling both of the VC men at once. They flinched, waved it off, and continued loading the boat. Cruz exhaled, trembling. Danny clutched the ground, breath shaking. Ellis looked like he might collapse. Price closed his eyes for one long, silent moment. Harper didn't move a muscle. When the VC finished loading the boat, they pushed it off gently, guiding it into the current. Then they vanished back into the brush. Harper waited. 1 minute, 2, 3. Then he whispered, fall back. We moved slowly, silently, backing along the mud, careful not to break a twig or slip. The river whispered behind us as if mocking our retreat. Once we were far enough away, Harper crouched behind a log and faced us. "That boat was heading north," he said, "toward friendly lines." Ellis swallowed. "Meaning someone's getting hit?" "Or something," Harper said. "A bridge, a convoy, a base." Danny ran a hand down his face. "We can't let that happen." Price's voice sharpened. "We're not blowing up a boat on our own." Harper shook his head. "We report. Hargrove decides." Cruz frowned. "What if it's too late?" Harper didn't answer. We moved back toward the ridge, the jungle closing behind us like a mouth swallowing a secret. The heat pressed harder, the insects grew louder, the air felt thicker. When we reached the point where the trail split, Harper stopped. He looked at each of us, really looked, at Price's clenched jaw, at Cruz's shaking hands, at Ellis's pale face, at Danny's fear-soaked eyes, at my own trembling fingers. "This isn't just another patrol," Harper said. "This is something bigger, something that could burn half this region down." Price nodded slowly. "Then we stop it." "We do what we're ordered," Harper said firmly. "No one acts on their own, not today." Danny whispered, "But what if orders aren't fast enough?" Ellis put a hand on his shoulder. "Then we'll do what we can, together." We continued down the trail toward base, boots sinking into mud, bodies exhausted, nerves on fire. The river whispered behind us, the jungle watched, and I realized something as we approached the perimeter. What we saw today wasn't just a threat. It was a fuse waiting for someone to light it, and somehow, someway, I knew that fuse was going to lead straight back to us. I wrote one sentence in Mary's journal that night. The river is carrying something deadly downstream, and if we don't stop it, it won't matter who writes us letters anymore. The first thing I felt when we stepped back inside the perimeter wasn't relief. It was dread, the kind that crawls up the spine because your body knows something your mind is still trying to hide. The kind that whispers you saw something you weren't supposed to see. Now the clock is ticking. We walked straight to the debrief tent, covered in sweat and river mud, boots dripping muck across the wooden floor. Captain Hargrove sat at the table, head bowed over a stack of reports. Mallory stood beside him, arms crossed, face carved from stone. Harper didn't wait to be asked. "We found a supply run," he said. 2 VC scouts loading crates onto a boat at the South Bend." Hargrove looked up sharply. "What kind of crates?" "Explosives," Ellis said. "Heavy ones." Cruz nodded. "Marked with Spanish. Could be imported ordnance." Price stepped forward, jaw tight. "Boat heading north, toward our lines." Danny swallowed hard. "Sir, they didn't see us, not clearly, but we were close." Hargrove's eyes flicked between us. "How many crates?" he asked. 4, Harper replied. "Minimum." Mallory scratched the back of his neck. "Damn!" Danny's voice was barely a whisper. "What do we do?" Hargrove pressed his fingers together, thinking hard. Finally, he said, "We get a message to the river checkpoints immediately. If that boat reaches any fuel depot, convoy, or artillery line—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. It would be carnage. Harper leaned forward. "We can pursue—" "No," Hargrove said sharply. "You are not equipped for direct river interdiction. You do not have the manpower. And after yesterday's ambush, you are not in condition to chase down anything." Price stiffened. "We're not broken." "You're exhausted," Hargrove corrected, "and exhaustion gets men killed." A silence settled, heavy, tense, full of swallowed anger. Harper inhaled slowly. "Sir, we need to stop that boat, now." Hargrove's jaw tightened. "I said no," Price muttered under his breath. "By the time command reacts, that boat'll be halfway up the damn river." Mallory's voice dropped. "These orders aren't a suggestion, Private." Price didn't look away. "Understood, Sergeant." But the way he said it made it clear he didn't understand anything. Hargrove turned to Mallory. "Radio it in. Now, highest priority." Mallory nodded and hurried out. Hargrove exhaled long through his nose. "You boys did good work," he said quietly. "Hard work, but your part is done." Harper didn't move. "Dismissed," Hargrove said. We stepped outside into brutal midday heat. No one spoke. Each of us carried the same truth. What we'd seen wasn't just a threat. It was the start of something large, something brewing beneath the quiet surface of this war. Cruz broke the silence first. "What if the radio call doesn't reach in time?" Ellis wiped sweat from his brow. "Then someone's getting hit." Danny swallowed, voice cracking. "Sir said we did our part." "Shouldn't that make me feel better?" Price laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Orders keep us alive. They don't keep us innocent." Harper turned toward the tents. "Get cleaned up. Hydrate. We're off until evening rotation." We nodded and headed for our tent. Inside, the air felt stale. The heat pressed down on us like an extra blanket. Danny collapsed onto his cot immediately, closing his eyes as if that would keep the images from returning. Cruz sat cross-legged on his bunk, rosary dangling from his fingers, lips moving without sound. Ellis unpacked his medical pouch, laying out his supplies like a ritual: gauze, forceps, bandages, antiseptic, morphine, tweezers. Not because he needed to, but because order in his hands kept chaos out of his mind. Price stood near the doorway, staring out at the base like he expected the tree line to spit out enemies at any second. I sat with Mary's journal in my lap, pen hovering, unsure what to write. The river mission felt unreal, like something out of a different war. Harper took the only empty crate and sat heavily, rubbing his temples with both hands. "We're not pursuing the boat," he said quietly, as if trying to convince himself as much as us. Price didn't turn around. "Want to bet command will even send someone?" he muttered. "Price," Harper warned. "No," Price snapped, "because you know I'm right. They'll log it, argue about it for 6 hours, and then call for a meeting. By then, the boat's gone." Cruz looked up, eyes full of a different kind of fear. "What if the boat hits something big, like a depot?" Ellis shook his head. "We don't know what they're planning." "But we know enough," Price said. Danny sat up slowly. "What if the boat's target is us?" Silence. It wasn't impossible. It wasn't even unlikely. Cruz whispered, "Dios mío." Harper stood. "Enough. We follow orders." Price whipped around. "For how long?" he demanded. "Until they blow half this base to hell because a radio operator took lunch at the wrong time?" Ellis stepped between them. "Price." "No," Price snapped. "We watched them load explosives. We saw the boat leave. We felt how big this is." Harper clenched his jaw. "I feel it too, but if we act without orders, we're done. Finished. Military prison finished." Price's shoulders heaved as anger rolled off him. "If someone dies because we did nothing," he said quietly, "that's a different kind of prison." He stormed out of the tent. Harper dropped back onto the crate. "We're losing him," he whispered, "piece by piece." Cruz nodded. "We all are." Danny looked down at his hands. "I don't know how to breathe anymore." Ellis sank onto his cot. "You inhale, then you exhale, whether you want to or not." I looked at each of them, 5 men trapped in a moment larger than themselves, breathing the same suffocating heat, feeling the same gnawing fear. We were all breaking. The cracks were just appearing in different places. Evening rolled in slowly, turning the sky a heavy, bruised purple before the sun finally slipped behind the trees. The temperature dipped slightly, but the air stayed thick. I stepped outside for a moment to breathe, but even the open air felt claustrophobic. The jungle wasn't singing tonight. It was holding its breath. Then, a distant rumble from the north. My heart froze. A second rumble, then shouting, footsteps, radios crackling. I turned just in time to see Hargrove running across the yard shouting orders. "Get the medics up! Move! Move!" Soldiers sprinted out of the mess hall. MPs ran from the motor pool. A jeep screeched to a halt near the comms tent. Ellis bolted from behind me, medical bag already in his hand. Cruz sprinted after him. Danny followed, trembling. Price appeared from the shadows, eyes wide. Harper grabbed my arm. "Come on!" We ran. Smoke was already rising beyond the sandbag wall near the northern side of camp, a thick black plume that climbed into the sky like a twisted tree. The air smelled like burning fuel, like melted plastic, like death. When we rounded the corner, the scene hit me like a hammer. The North Side Depot, a small fuel storage station, had been torn apart. Flames roared from a ruptured tank. Debris lay scattered in a semicircle. Men screamed. Medics shouted commands. The ground was slick with spilled fuel and blood. Harper stopped dead. "Oh, God," he whispered. Ellis rushed forward with Cruz close behind. They dropped to their knees beside the nearest wounded soldier, working with frantic precision. Danny covered his mouth, eyes wide with horror. Price looked at the destruction, at the fire, at the smoke twisting upward, and whispered, "They hit it." A siren wailed across the base. Hargrove sprinted toward the wreckage, shouting orders nobody could follow fast enough. Harper turned slowly, his face white as ash. "They hit it," Price repeated. "We warned them. We fucking warned them." Harper didn't respond. He couldn't. Behind us, new flames erupted as another piece of debris caught fire. Soldiers scrambled to set up hoses, buckets, anything to stop the spread. The depot was gone, destroyed, because a boat full of explosives had gotten through, because someone had taken too long to react, because our orders were to wait. I felt something inside me fracture, quietly, not with a scream or a shout, just a soft internal crack. Harper whispered it first. "This is on command." Price whispered it next. "This is on all of us." And in that moment, the war changed. Again. I looked at the flames reflecting off the metal wreckage and wrote one sentence in Mary's journal later that night. "Today, the river delivered death to our doorstep, because the order that could have stopped it didn't arrive until after the fire. The flames didn't die quickly. Fuel fires never do. They burn in thick, angry bursts, black smoke pouring upward, orange heat rippling through the air like a living thing trying to claw its way out of the world. Even from 50 yards away, the heat slapped us in the face, sharp enough to sting the eyes and dry the throat. Soldiers were running everywhere, some with hoses, some with stretchers, some just trying to find anyone who could tell them what to do. Shouts echoed over the roar of the fire. Radios crackled with overlapping orders. It felt like chaos had been waiting in the tree line and had finally decided to step into camp. Cruz worked beside Ellis, sleeves rolled up, hands steady, even as his face twisted with horror. Ellis moved between casualties with sharp, practiced motions, packing wounds, stabilizing legs, clearing airways. He was fast and precise, but even he couldn't stop his hands from shaking. Danny stood nearby, frozen, watching Ellis work. His chest heaved with rapid breaths. His eyes were locked on a soldier whose uniform was burned away from the waist up. The man screamed, a raw, guttural sound that didn't sound human. Danny pressed a hand over his mouth, trying not to break. Price and Harper stood a few feet away, looking at the wreckage of the fuel depot. Harper's face was pale, jaw tight. Price's face was something else entirely. Fury. Not the loud kind, the quiet kind, the kind that burns hotter than the fire in front of us. "We knew?" Price whispered. "We knew this was coming." Harper swallowed. "Price, we warned them," Price said again, "and they did nothing." Harper didn't argue. His silence was agreement. Hargrove sprinted past us, barking orders with a harshness that bordered on desperation. "Get more water on that left side. Move those fuel drums now. You, yes, you, drag that man back before that wall collapses. Medics, I need every medic on this line." His face looked older in the firelight, shadows cutting deep under his eyes. Mallory followed close behind, grabbing soldiers by their collars to reposition them, trying to bring order to the chaos. But the truth was clear. The boat had hit the depot. The explosion had ripped through the fuel tanks. People were dying because a radio call wasn't fast enough. Harper took a step forward toward Hargrove, but Price grabbed his arm. "Don't," Price said. Harper spun toward him. "We could have stopped this." "And now what?" Price demanded. "You gonna chew out a captain in the middle of a goddamn firefight? That'll fix it?" Harper clenched his jaw but didn't move. Cruz looked up from a wounded soldier. "Harper, we need bandages." Harper ran to help. Price stayed where he was, staring at the flames with a stare so cold it was almost frightening. Then he turned and walked straight toward Hargrove. I didn't realize what he was doing until Danny grabbed my arm. "Should we stop him?" Danny whispered. "Yes," I said, already moving. "No!" Harper snapped, stepping into my path. "Let him speak." "He's angry," I said. "He has a right to be," Harper replied. But I saw something in Price's posture. Shoulders rigid, fists clenched, breath sharp. This wasn't simple anger. This was a man unraveling. Price reached Hargrove just as the captain finished shouting another order. "Captain," Price said. Hargrove turned. "Not now, son. You ignored us." The words sliced the air. Everything around us kept moving, flames roaring, medics shouting, but somehow the space between Price and Hargrove went still. Too still. Hargrove blinked. "What did you just say to me?" Price stepped closer. "I said," he repeated, "you ignored us. You ignored what we saw. You ignored what we said. And now men are dying." Mallory moved closer, tense, ready. Harper whispered under his breath, "Oh, hell." Hargrove squared his shoulders. "You watch yourself. We did what we could." Price's voice rose, not in volume, but in intensity. "No, sir. What you could have done was send someone to stop that boat. What you did was wait, and this is the cost." Hargrove's jaw twitched. "Private Price? Stand down." "We had a chance," Price said. "We had a chance to do something before this happened." Mallory stepped forward. "Private, take one more step out of line and you—" Price spun on him. "Don't," he snapped. "Don't tell me to stand down when you're standing next to a grave you helped dig." Harper grabbed my shoulder, almost crushing it. "Let it play," he murmured, though I could hear his own breath shaking. Hargrove's voice turned steel hard. "Price, you're out of line." "No," Price said. "I'm the only one in this whole damn camp who's in line, because the line is between what was preventable and what you let happen." The fire behind us crackled louder, spitting sparks into the air. Mallory reached out, grabbing Price's arm. "That's enough." Price ripped his arm free. "Get your hands off me." Ellis looked up from treating a wounded soldier, panic in his eyes. Cruz froze mid-prayer. Danny stumbled back 3 steps, trembling. Hargrove's face twisted with pain and fury and exhaustion all at once. "You think I wanted this?" he asked quietly. "You think I didn't sit in that tent weighing every decision? You think I don't hear these men screaming every goddamn night already?" Price stepped closer, inches from him. "That's the problem," Price whispered. "You hear them. You don't listen to us." Mallory moved again, this time grabbing Price by the front of his uniform. "Private, that's enough." "Mallory, let him go," Harper shouted. "Sergeant, stand down," Mallory barked. Price shoved Mallory backward with both hands. The sergeant staggered. Harper lunged forward. Danny yelped. Cruz grabbed Ellis. To keep him from rushing over, everything blurred for a moment. Then Hargrove stepped between them. "Stop!" The word boomed through the chaos. Everyone froze. Hargrove stood between the men like a wall, chest heaving, sweat dripping from his brow. He looked at Price, not angry now, not defensive, just tired. "Private," he said softly, "do you think you're the only one who feels responsible? Do you?" Price's breath stuttered. Hargrove continued, voice cracking at the edges. "I got the radio message. I sent it up. They delayed. Not me. Higher command. They wanted confirmation. They wanted clarity. They asked for a second report." He swallowed hard. By the time they approved anything, the boat was already close. Price blinked, just once, just enough. Hargrove's voice softened even further. "We all failed someone today." The flames roared behind us. Price's shoulders lowered, not much, but enough to show the fight was withdrawing, curling inward. He whispered, "I can't watch another man die because someone waited too long." Hargrove nodded. "Neither can I." There was silence, not peace, but something close to understanding, a fragile truce forged in fire. Harper stepped closer. "We need to stick together, all of us, or this place takes us apart." Cruz crossed himself quietly. Ellis closed his eyes, exhausted. Danny wiped his face, trembling. Price finally exhaled. "Yeah," he whispered. "Together." Hargrove nodded once, sharply. "Get back to your tent. All of you. I'll handle the aftermath." Price hesitated. Hargrove added, "That's an order and a request." Price nodded and stepped back. We returned to our tent slowly, the fire behind us still spitting embers into the dark sky. The smell of burning fuel lingered in our clothes, in our hair, in our lungs. Back inside, nobody spoke. We didn't have to. The silence was its own conversation. Price sat down hard on his cot, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Cruz leaned over, exhausted, muttering prayers through a cracked voice. Ellis wiped blood from his hands. He did this automatically now. Danny curled up on his side, pulling his knees in close, shaking quietly. Harper sat on the crate, head bowed, shoulders trembling just barely. I took out Mary's journal. My hand didn't shake as I wrote this time. Tonight, we saw what delayed decisions look like when they burn. We saw blame ignite between men who were supposed to be one unit, and we saw it nearly break us. I paused, listening to the fire outside, the quiet sobbing, the heavy breaths, the jungle humming in the distance. Then I wrote the final line. Part 6 ended not with an explosion, but with a fracture. And I don't know how many of us will be whole enough for what comes next.